I'm Darley here, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about the Houston Texans a little bit, some Houston Astros, and the beginning of preseason. So let's kick off this video with the Houston Texans. They won, they beat the New England Patriots, they held on at the end. Deshaun Watson had another solid game, Tom Savage had two solid drives, and the New England Patriots kept their starters up for a little bit longer than I think they imagined, that they probably planned on having. But Belichick's a perfectionist. He wants to try and make sure that everything is up and ready to go for the regular season. And the Houston Texans won. Jacoby Brissett fumbled, won the game-winning drive at the end, and Houston held on. Score really isn't important in the preseason. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit. Some Houston Astros update. The Houston Astros took 2-3 from Oakland. They have a 12.5 game lead over the Anaheim Angels. Not as big of a lead now for the race of the best record in the American League. Last I checked, it was 5 over the Boston Red Sox. Boston is gaining on Houston, but let's be real about the Astros for a second. The Astros are not as strong as Boston, Cleveland, and when they're healthy, the New York Yankees. I still have my concerns about their bullpen. I have my concerns about their rotation. Of course, they're getting a lot of guys on the mend, like Carlos Correa is now handling a bat. That's good news. George Springer is back. Lance McCullers will be back soon, but for who knows how long. Colin McHugh has been solid. Dallas Keuchel looks like vintage Keuchel, but again, can he stay healthy? So 6 weeks before the season ends and the playoffs begin, it's going to be interesting to see how the Astros pan out. Now back to football. The Houston Texans are 1-1 in the preseason. The third most important preseason game is against the New Orleans Saints. This will be where most of the starters play most of the game. And then for most of the first half, this is probably going to see a lot of Savage and Watt and Clowney and Merciless and all the starters of Houston against the starters of New Orleans. This is a great test maybe for Deshaun Watson if Savage struggles in the preseason game. Now the starter quarterback for Houston is still Savage. That hasn't changed regardless of Savage's starts, or the way that Savage has played in the preseason. He's been really good. He's been solid. He's been everything the Texans have had from him in his career when he's been on the field. He's not going to light up the scoreboard. He's not going to light up the stat sheet, but he's a solid quarterback. The future is still Deshaun Watson. There's no question about it. I still think Watson, the way I see him, I think he still needs probably a year on the bench. Needs to take some time to really develop more of a pocket presence. You know, there are times when he's taking hits, and there's times when he's taking off running when I think he could simply either throw it away or not try and avoid, taking those unnecessary shots when running with the football. Now, I just want to say this to all NFL fans. The preseason is not for fans. It's for coaches. It's for the GM. This is a time of the year where this is just training games. This is just like opportunities to see what they need to work on, what is left. Anything that Deshaun Watson does not impact the quarterback competition between he and Savage. Savage is the starter for Houston, barring injury. Of course, I know that as much as I hate to say it, I know at some point this season he will start because Tom Savage has proven he cannot stay healthy. I think Tom still lacks a pocket presence to him. He doesn't feel pressure. He doesn't feel the rush. He doesn't really sense it, and he doesn't have a quick release. So I think he's taking that's a result of him. By result, that's him setting himself up more for taking sacks, unnecessary sacks, and taking big hits when he shouldn't be taking any hits at all. So, in all honesty, I think, yes, we'll see Watson at some point this season. I think Watson is ready, somewhat. I still think he has a few things to work on. He's a rookie. He's going to have some ups and downs. He's going to have some rookie moments. He has to work on his touch. And he has to work, I think, on his deep ball. A lot of the passes that he's had a lot of success on is the short and intermediate routes. To me, the Texans have to be able to stretch the field. They were one of the worst teams last year in throwing the ball 20-plus yards. So, what does that mean? That means Houston didn't stretch any defenses, and it really allowed the opposing defense to stack the box as stuff Lamar Miller. And Lamar Miller is going to have a heck of a backup next to him in Deontay Foreman. I think this kid is legit. But again, what happens in the preseason doesn't always translate to the regular season because, like I said, these are just training games. It's like J.J. Watt is not going all out in preseason. He's just trying to stay healthy and work off the rust. Same thing with Clowney. They're just trying to stay healthy. They're not doing anything crazy right now because the Texans, like I said, this is just training. The Texans are not going to want their superstar defensive linemen and Clowney and Watt to get hurt in meaningless games. That's the same thing with DeAndre Hopkins. You're going to see him run routes for Savage, you run a couple of different routes, but he's not going to play beyond the first quarter. So again, this is going back to what I said about the preseason. It's for coaches. It's an evaluation process to see how young players, undrafted players, the draft picks handle NFL game-like situations, and it also gives coaches an opportunity to coach in a setting like, take last night's challenge. For example, the Patriots had an incompletion that was ruled an incompletion and fumble, but then was reviewed by the Texans, and again it was returned back to an incompletion because, but the reason Bill O'Brien challenged is because if it was a fumble, if it was an incomplete pass, the Patriots would have been a 3rd and 8, not a 3rd and 3, and that's and it wasn't. It was ruled a catch and a fumble. So, and Bill O'Brien challenged that, and the Texans, it cost the Texans a timeout. It's just stuff like that allow coaches, situations that coaches work on all the time, and it's what they want to do. It's what they do. Coaches are always looking for ways to improve their team, improve what they can do themselves. It's not just preseason, it's not just for the players, it's for the coaches, and the referees have had some preseason moments. You're seeing a lot of unnecessary flags. I think a lot of young players are getting called for a lot of ticky-tack calls, and it's really not an opportunity. Some of it's an opportunity for them to learn not to make those silly fouls, but it's also silly that you're in a preseason meaningless game and you've got referees blowing almost every play dead because there's silly ticky-tack hand checking, if you'd like to call it. And that's it. It's just preseason. It doesn't mean anything. What happens in the preseason doesn't always translate to the regular season. The Houston Texans were 4-0 in the preseason, and they went 7-1 at home compared to 2-6 on the road. That's going to have to be different this year. That's going to have to be the same kind of dominance they had last year at home, but they're also going to have to be road warriors, especially if they want to try and get one of those top 2 seeds in the AFC. A lot of expectations, very high expectations for the Texans. They should have a good run game. Their defense should be just as good, if not better than last year. Again, my concern for them is their pass defense when the rush isn't getting there. Of course, you could say that about mostly every team in the league. If you don't get the pass rush, you don't force the quarterback into early mistakes, and therefore you don't get the turnovers. So, the Texans got some things to work on. Preseason game 3 will be against the Saints, and then they'll wrap up preseason against the Dallas Cowboys before opening the regular season at home at NRG against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll see what happens. The Astros will get a day off tomorrow before taking on the Washington Nationals. The banged up Nationals come into Houston with no Bryce Harper and no Max Scherzer. This really kills that series buzz. One of the best teams in the league, two of the best teams in the league getting together, and the Nationals don't have their horses and the Astros don't have theirs. This is an example that's going to kill baseball. You need your teams to have their best players there. I mean, you just need to find a way to obviously keep your superstars healthy. That's why the NBA is successful, because it's a star-driven league. It's the reason the NFL is successful. Again, stars make your league. So the Astros will begin a 3-game series with the Nationals on Tuesday. And the Texans will continue their preseason or try and continue to grow and get better. And maybe if Deshaun Watson outplays Savage in preseason week 3, maybe it changes O'Brien's mind in some way or another. Who knows? We'll find out. This has been Sam Darley. Thank you for watching.